Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's your boy Devvon Terrell in raw form, and welcome to another Help Me Devvon plugin review. And today, in this Help Me Devvon plugin review, I'll be showing you guys Waves Retrofy, which is a new plugin introduced from Waves that does what it sounds like. It makes your sound source sound more retro, more vintage, more classic. It's really interesting, really intuitive, has a lot of different functions, and I'm excited to actually show you this plugin as I've been getting to know it over the course of this time. That Waves was so gracious to basically give me a look at the plugin. Now, what I'm going to ask for you guys to do also is like, comment, and subscribe to keep this channel going and to support the channel if you've arrived here. Also, you can visit helpmedevvon.com at any time during this tutorial to get some of our presets, vocal chains, and goodies. Now, let's get to the review. So this is Waves Retrofy. And when I look at the entire interface, I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory for the most part. When I look over here in this side, I see 80s, 70s, 60s, 50s. I see that it already has kind of these like sonic characteristics that I can kind of dial in and mess with. So instead of going through each knob first and kind of going through it, let me just play a song. Let me just give you a beat and let me try to turn this beat into like a sample. Let me see if I can make it sound vintage and retro and old and see how it goes. Then we'll go knob for knob and I'll kind of break down the plugin. But let's see what this thing can do off rip. Okay, so I'm gonna play this beat and I'm just gonna play around with this. Okay, now let's bypass this thing back and forth and let's hear where we were and where we landed. Check this out. Without first. Such an interesting plugin, and I can sit here all day and really fine tune it to the sound, to the noise, to the wobble, the wow, the speed of the tape, the style of the time period, and all these things. There's even the squash function that I see here that basically allows you to compress the crap out of the sound and make it more dirty and grungy. This is Waves Retrofy. Let's go sound for sound. Let's go knob for knob and kind of see what this really does internally as far as what just happened and how we got to that end sound. Now, granted, you can use this for vocals. You can use this for anything that you're trying to get more of a retrofied sound out of. So what I'll do is this. I'll put this back to factory default. And now let's listen to it for what it is. So obviously the 80 setting on. I'm going to throw this mix knob to 100% because I do want to hear the full effect of what it's doing with this. So this is the styler, and let's see what the styler does. The styler lets us go from 80s to 70s to 60s to 50s. It's really interesting what it does. Obviously it has different sonic characteristics. Let's go through them right quick. Now, when I hit the device button with it, and this is what I like about this, that I can pick my style or era, but at the same time, in picking my style or era, I can also pick how I want it to react or shape that sound. So I can have it where it's like, give me a little bit more of a low-end sound on the 80s, or give me more of that top-end sound or the 80s, or that 70s, give me just that mid-range. It allows me to kind of fine-tune on top of the styler, which is pretty cool. And I've seen this in other plugins, but I've never seen one that really lets me like dial in the time period and then at the same time kind of allow me to manipulate it a bit. So that's a really cool feature. The tone knob right here seems to me to be kind of like a low pass, high pass kind of filter kind of thing, because it kind of rolls off the low end for one side of the tone and it kind of rolls off the high end for another side of the tone. So check this out. Let's put this back to 80s and let's check this out what the tone knob does. So clearly, when I put the tone knob to the right, it feels like it rolls off a lot of the low end. And when I push the tone knob to the left, it feels like it rolls off a lot of the top end, which to me, then I say in my brain, left is warmer, right is colder. So that's how I can kind of gauge how the tone. So if you're looking for a warmer tone, you can actually dial in as far as what you want, whether you want it to feel colder or whether you want it to feel warmer. Super dope. I like that a lot. Next thing we got is the squash knob. Now the squash knob is interesting because it feels like a parallel compression kind of thing. Like it feels like you're hitting the crap out of a tape and it's compressing it like heavily. So check this out. Yeah, so for me, it's doing exactly that. It's squashing the signal, but it does have an interesting way of how it squashes it. It kind of still feels kind of warm and still feels a little bit musical, kind of like I could take that sound and blend it in with another, or if I'm just trying to create a dirty drum sound, this could be really, really sick to put on top of it with the squash. So there's a lot of different things that you can go. So if you're looking for more of that lo-fi drum sound, this is actually probably a good thing you could use to kind of make those drums feel a little bit more dirty and trashier. Pretty cool if you ask me as far as that knob is concerned. I'll try another one. Let's see what this ringer knob does. Interesting. It feels like the ringer knob adds some artifacts into the actual signal that are kind of related to like retro classic kind of stuff. That's an interesting knob that it does. It adds artifacts. Cool. So it's more fine tuning that you can do. Next thing is pretty self-explanatory. There's an echo and there's a reverb. Now with the echo, I'm seeing to myself that obviously you could dial in the style of time-wise as far as how you want the delay and stuff like that. So if I turn it to a fourth, let's put it to a fourth. Or matter of fact, let's do a 16 so it sounds slappy, like a slap delay. And let's see what this sounds like. I like that I can physically dial in how much of that level I actually want in, as opposed to just kind of slapping it on and kind of being married to it. I can actually say, oh, that's fine tune it, and I like that about this plugin. The one thing I will say about this plugin that I'm actually really impressed with is how much fine tuning I can do within parameters. So I'm happy that there's an echo or delay, but at the same time I can say too much and back it off some and move it in shape like that. So I like that a lot. Even with the 80s sound, for instance, and with this styler, I can dial back on the mix. I can literally say, I like that 80s sound, but I just want a little bit of that 80s sound. So if I take the echo off and I come here, I can blend to taste how much of the effect I actually want. So that is honestly kind of powerful, and I kind of appreciate that that's there. Next thing we'll check out is the reverb. And the reverb comes in two settings, it seems like. Comes in spring and plate. Now, spring reverbs are pretty interesting, and plate reverbs I use a lot to this day. Let's hear the difference between the spring reverb and the plate reverb. So this is my link. So this looks like my reverb time right here. And usually when it comes to plate verbs or spring verbs or anything like that, I usually use pretty short reverb times because I just don't want that to ring out too much. Now, granted, this could be a preference. You can do whatever you want, but I'm just telling you as far as how I would use it. Probably if I'm looking for an overall sound on something, I just use it in lower reverb times to kind of make it feel a little more realistic, if that makes any sense, especially with plate verbs. Okay, cool. So let's see it out. Let's check it out for a second. Interesting. Now let's take this to spring instead. Now let's take this off. Let's hear what it sounds like without it. That's legit. That's pretty cool. So it allows me to dial in as much of the spring or the plate verb as I want. Cool. And you can also see that it has a mix knob here too. So I can put more of that into the entire overall mix of my sound as well. So once again, I can fine tune, which is pretty cool. Now, this one actually surprised me a lot, and that's the noise section over here. And usually when it comes to plugins emulating noise, I'm not too big of a fan of them. But this one actually does it in an interesting way. And the reason why I say this is because as opposed to saying, hey, add noise to my signal and just cranking one knob, what it allows and what it does is there's actually a threshold and a level. I'm going to explain to you how dope this is. So basically, I can set a threshold and say, yo, when my sound is over this threshold, I want you to introduce that cassette noise or whatever other digital noise or vinyl noise and stuff like that. Let me show you right quick. So you see right there where I put it for the threshold, it feels a little bit somewhat of a natural, like, okay, it's not like overbearing, but you can hear it. It's like every time it hits a certain volume, it feels like this is where it actually introduces some of that taped cassette sound noise. Here's the powerful part though. The powerful part is the fact that I can set the threshold, but at the same time, I can say, okay, yeah, this is when you introduce it, but this is how much or how loud I want the cassette noise to actually be. So peep this. Now that's something that's powerful to me, and that's something that's interesting because now I actually can introduce the noise, but I can also say, hey, only at this threshold, and when you do get to this threshold and you let the noise through, make sure it's this volume. That's actually powerful. I think that's gonna go over a lot of people's head with the plugin when adding some retro noise and stuff like that. That thing can really, really add some realism to your sound as far as what you're trying to accomplish and stuff like that. So that is there. The other side is pretty cool as well. This is more like tape, like modulation kind of stuff as far as the mechanic section is concerned. This is like the speed of the tape. This messes with just a bunch of different sonic characteristics that makes it sound more detuned. It really adds this character of feeling more vintage. This is actually probably my favorite section because this is where I get some of that old sound out of the actual plugin and things of that nature. It's like a tape being manipulated, if that makes any sense. It's modulation. It's wearing the tape out. It's making the tape feel a certain way. So check this out. So as you see, we got wobble A, speed A, wobble A. So this is like two, I know exactly what this is kind of emulating for the most part. But just check it out without me getting so deep into what this actually is emulating. Check this out. So you can feel that detune kind of thing happening where it just feels old and it feels vintage and it's like, this is old, and it's interesting, it's an interesting sound, and I can dial it in as much as I want, or least if I have that for the most part. And we can come over here to wobble, the other side, the B side, and let's see what the B side does. Now, obviously, I'm exaggerating just to give you an effect, but you see the speed of the tape has a sound. The wow has a certain sound, and the wobble is interesting as well. The wobble kind of introduces kind of this ducking kind of sound. Check this out. And all those things add up to a plugin that I just feel is pretty cool. I just really, really like, and what I will give kudos to, is the fact that I'm able to really fine tune a lot of the parameters that I have, and not fine tune it in a sense of a lot of knobs for no reason. I feel like every knob here really has a general purpose, as opposed to some other programs that I see that, some other plugins that I see that just have a lot of stuff that I feel like 90% of the time a lot of us don't even wind up going through. And we wind up just finding those 5 parameters that we just kind of tweak all the time. But this actually, I feel like I would actually mess around with all of these knobs and buttons at one sitting when I'm working. Granted, now there's some presets in here that are really, really sick, especially for vocals and just guitars and all kinds of stuff. You can be as creative as you want to be. Check out these presets. I highly recommend the Waves Retrofy plugin. And it's a sick plugin, and I'm definitely going to be bringing this into my actual workflow as far as how things are concerned. So watch out for it. You'll see it in some upcoming tutorials. So that was my plugin review on Waves Retrofy. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please comment, like, subscribe. Let me know what else you would like to see from me. Make sure you also visit helpmedevvon.com at any time to get some of our presets, vocal chains, etc. The link will be in the description below. And also make sure you follow us at helpmedevvon on Instagram, and also follow us on our Discord community with a bunch of aspiring engineers, producers, artists like yourself trying to get game and trading secrets. So that was my plugin review. I really hope you liked it, and until next time.